But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in-store, and exclusive access to sold-out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
You are about to participate in the most ambitious culinary experiment ever imagined.
This competition is going to test everything.
Adapt quickly to anything. I mean anything. The wildest day of your life starts right now.
All new 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing. Sunday night at 8 on Food Network. Stream on Max.
The Vietnam War, it's over. Your job's just begun.
A new HBO original limited series.
Welcome to the world of spycraft. Strap in.
From executive producers Park Chan-wook and Robert Downey Jr.
What are you concealing?
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen.
What if I told you that I was a communist spy?
How did you become this?
The Sympathizer, streaming April 14th on Max. Subscription required.
I'm 100, now I'm part-time jobs. I'm 100, now I'm part-time jobs. I've been working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 101. You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Biddett. It's where we hear from musicians and artists about the lengths that they go to play their music and travel around. And lengths have the Mary Wallopers gone, coming from County Dundalk, starting off playing shows for absolutely no money. Their first show was when they did a good 10 or 12 hour stint and they got a few quid for it. And now they're selling out the Roundhouse and the Troxy, and they're still making it all work, going on the fly. So here's our chat with Andrew and Charles Hendy of the band. At the end of last year, they released their second album, Irish Rock and Roll, and it really is just that. I think of them as the Iggy Pops of Ireland. The Mary Wallopers are a special band, and this chat is a far and away good one. I didn't edit any of this. It goes straight through, chocker of stories from Andrew and Charles. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to 101 Part-Time Jobs wherever you're listening to this. We put out a few episodes at least every week, bands who we think are great, and it'd be great to have you along. Shout out to our sponsors 2000 Trees, an excellent independent festival in Cheltenham, happening this July with a stacked lineup with the Gaslight Anthem, the Chats, Manchester Orchestra, Bob Villain, Hot Mulligan, Dune Rats, Skinny Lister, and so many more playing 2000 Trees this year. If you head to 2000trees.co.uk, you can pick up your ticket, and using the voucher code 101POD, that's 101POD, you can get 50 quid off your weekend ticket to 2000 Trees. All right, we're about to hear from Andrew and Charles here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. It's the Mary Wallopers. Most jobs are shite. Like the reason why you got into music, the reason why I got into music, while lots of people listening to this or playing in bands or going to gigs got into music, is because it's somewhere fun to go, somewhere to like go a bit crazy, go have a bit of fun, stay at the back or be quiet, whatever you want to do, or whether you play, you know, it's an escape from, you know, like this like depressing world. You know, now more than ever, people are talking about mental health and being depressed, and a big part of that, I think, is my theory, is that you come out of school and you're like, well, what the fuck am I'm told that I can do everything, but I feel like I can do nothing. And there's this real kind of internal battle of like, who the fuck am I? I think everyone is feeling that way right now.
Yeah, 100%. Like the system of do this thing until you get to the next thing, and then when you get to the next thing, you get to the thing after that. And actually, all that's at the end of it is debt in reality. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so that's your big consolation prize.
It was definitely the driver of us. Like, I feel like when we started, we decided we were going to play music regardless of anything, like very, very early on. And we just like stuck our head down, or like, we don't care if we're like really, really poor or whatever, because we were really poor already. So it didn't really matter whether or not we had money. So we were just like, we're doing this regardless of what anyone thinks about it. And then now we're doing it all the time. But it's definitely, it was a necessity, I suppose, for our heads to do it. We just had to do it.
What were people getting up to in Dundalk when you were growing up? What were people's hobbies? What were the other people you were doing?
Like
smoking weed.
Smoking weed mostly. But I suppose when we were teenagers, like I'm 2 years older than Andrew, I was skipping school a lot. And that's how I probably know most of my friends from Dundalk now. But, you know, when we were teenagers, they were all starting bands. And there was a place called the Sports Bowl, which was a bowling alley with a venue room and a bar at the back of it. That was actually fairly big. It held like 300 people or something. And all these teenagers were putting on gigs out there. And so teenagers were starting like so-called promotion companies that all be called like Demented Promotions and everything, and then all teenagers starting bands, and it wasn't facilitated by any sort of youth centre or youth counsellor or anything like that. It was literally all teenagers, and I'm 90% sure that the bar used to serve a lot of them as well, you know. But we used to go to these gigs that were like by teenagers for teenagers, and a lot of those people are still in bands now, you know, like Just Mustard. David Keenan, you know, used to play a load of them, and like they're still in bands. And I think part of the reason is because of that very organic DIY thing in Dundalk, you know, that I couldn't understand how it would happen now in somewhere in Ireland, because people were kind of turning a blind eye to it a wee bit more.
Probably because the sports bowl was sort of dilapidated and they just were letting people put shit on. But like, it's probably the best thing that ever happened in the area for young people. Like,
it's proof of concept. And I think I had a similar experience. We had a youth centre where you could put on gigs and they'd pay you in pizza and Diet Coke and Fantas.
That's great.
And we'd have beers before the gig and after the gig, try and not get in trouble when we were at the gig, because we respected this place and we respected Claire, who ran the Swan in Berkhamsted. And it was like, only now, sort of 15, 20 years later almost, it's like, oh, that's proof of concepts that you can make something and then other people will come and maybe you can afford to make it happen and sustain yourself. And the more I think about it, that experience is like, that feels like music world at large. Like, no one knows what. I mean, there are so many pirates in the music industry. That's because there's no official way to do things. Whether you're a label or a PR or a fan buying records, everything that's exciting is more or less brand new.
Yeah. It's kind of thrown together because you have to. You know what? That's kind of how a band survives as well, is your ability to roll with the punches too, because you have to kind of commit to fucking up.
Yeah. It's like you have to make your own kind of set of rules on how you do it as well. Like I think a lot of people like go into music courses where they're like training you to be a rock star or whatever, and then they think they can come out and then just become musicians. But it's like
I failed my leaving cert, which you're told your whole life in Ireland that it's the single most important state examination you'll ever sit, and I failed that, and because I didn't go into school and didn't study for it, and so I failed that, and then the only option for me after a year of like just bumming around on the dole was I felt so much pressure to go into a course or into some sort of educational, like more so than anything, so that I could be like, I'm doing something, you know, with my life. And so I went to this BIM that was in Dublin. It was only after opening up, because it was the only course that I could get into with just an audition. So I didn't need to actually have any, like leaving cert or points or anything. So I went and I did the audition, and I take that course. I only had to go in for 1 day a week for a year, and I couldn't manage it, and I failed that course. And I think I'm the only person out of that course that's doing music still, you know, which is pretty amazing, because like it just, I think we're brought up in a society in which things are shown to you step by step, black and white, without any room for any life to get in the way, you know, debt or any of this anxiety. And you're just shown, well, this is just what you do. You just take these steps. And I feel sorry for other people in the course, because they clearly wanted to do music, but they were looking at it in a way of, obviously, well, I just do this course and then do this and then I'm going to be a pop star.
In a way, it kind of seems like a pyramid scheme, though, for like musicians who are older and have played a bit, but they're not really making money. But then they can get money by like being lecturers now, and then they're like kind of lecturing like younger people, and like whatever about learning to play an instrument in terms of like technically learning to get. You can do a course to learn how to like produce or learn how to like play technically, but even at that, like, you're better just going yourself, I think. Like,
it's like, it's human to human connection. You know, when you get a record, you find about that band and you're like, oh, like this speaks to me in a way that I don't really understand. Like, that's exactly it. A lot of this music, communication, connection, you can't teach that. And that's not some hippy dippy stuff. That's just the way it is. That is music.
It can be hard. And you know what? At the core of it, I don't even think it's a willingness to. I do believe anyone can perform, but if you're coming at it from the wrong attitude in the first place, if you have any false feelings, if you want to do it because you want to be famous, I think it's not good. It may work in the pop world, you know, but that's kind of not. It's not something that interests us, you know, the pop world, because it's just money. Kind of, it's like just a business, you know.
I think if you're trying to like create anything or do anything creative, like, you're better spending time like working on yourself and like putting time into like whatever you're interested in, just doing that for longer, because you'll end up coming up with something that is a kind of a combination of all your interests that will be something fresh, like or whatever. That's what
the thing. Yeah, I think like the thing is like that if people go into it with false pretenses, whether that be being famous or also just wanting to be in a band because there's some other reason there, you know, they want to be in a band for maybe you know, gratification or something. Like and we see it loads with bands talking to us, and like bands will say stuff to us like, why do you get so many gigs? You know, and we'll be like, well, because we play a lot of gigs, you know.
So many people think there's like some scam.
There's some scam going on.
Or like, anytime we do something big on television or something, we'll get loads of messages from people in other bands being like, oh, come here, how do you get on telly?
Yeah.
It's like,
you know, and we're like,
how do you get on telly?
So you just get asked.
You get asked to
I'll tell you how you do it. You play as many, you say yes to every single gig you're asked to play for about 3 years, and lose loads of money off it, and not know anything about business, and then have to learn really quickly so you can pay your rent. Like I'm blue in the face telling other bands that are talking to us, like, the only way to do it is just like I think we spent a good 3 or 4 years playing every single gig we were asked to play.
We'd be going to Donegal to do a gig for €100, and like that would be the cost to go to Donegal. Then maybe we'd go to like Limerick the next day. Then maybe we'd go to like Cork, and there'd be massive journeys, and we'd be just 3 of us in a van with no insurance, no tax. Like one time we had to borrow a car off one of our friends, and we were asked to do, I think it was a support with the Rubber Bandits or something, and it was one of our first early gigs with our
I think we were literally just playing in Galway.
Yeah, we were playing in Galway anyway, and we had no way to get there, so we asked one of our friends for a car, and he was like, yeah, come and get it, and we got a lift down to his house, and there was this like people carrier in a hedge covered in moss and mold, and he pulled it out, and like we tried to put a key in the door and it wasn't the right key, and then there was another key, and it was a real dodgy yoke.
Look, the car was 100% stolen.
Yeah,
and if you're willing, if you want to be a musician, if you're willing to risk driving a stolen people carrier across the country with no tax, insurance or anything to go to a gig, you're probably going to lose €100 of money that you literally don't have. Then you might have a chance. You know, you really need to love doing it to do it.
We used to have to go into our landlord's office and be like, look, we can't pay the rent this week. And we'll be able to play in a few weeks, and we keep that going for like 6-7 months at a time, and then give them like maybe €200, and then out of a few thousand.
Because paying the rent isn't as important as playing music to us. You know, like at the end of the day, performing is the most important thing. So the guards aren't going to get in the way of that for us, or the police, and you know, our landlord isn't going to get in the way. Like, no one's getting in the way of us doing that, and that's why we're here in the first place.
Because we had to play music as well. Like, to be honest, performing was the only thing that kept us having any degree of sanity, because we were both a bit mental. So like, it was a need to perform and fuck everything else, and it wasn't about anything else.
When you hear those stories, 'cause I think quite often you'll read like 1 or 2 lines in an interview, you know, it'll be like, oh, we just did everything we could to make it work. You don't really understand or get to see the imagery or hear the stories of the day to day. And that's what it is. It is telling your landlord, I can't pay the rent. It is telling your family or your partner or whoever it is, I'm not going to see you. You know, I'm so behind that. That's a bit of me, that. But there's always going to be a part that is terrifying about that is like, you know, you don't want to hurt people, you know, you don't want to fuck people over, you don't want to fuck yourself over. How do you think you've been able to kind of, you know, make ends meet with that side of stuff of being like, you know, you still want to be a good person, live a good life?
Well, our whole thing is that, like, well, first of all, like, all the rich cunts and politicians, they break all the rules anyway to get what they want. So if like poor people start doing that as well, then we can just get what we want. But then as well as that, there's just karma. Like, I think if you're signed to people, and like everyone in Dundalk, even if they were playing different genres, like the lads from Just Mustard or whatever, like like we'd all be helping each other out if we needed stuff done musically or whatever, and we just had good friends, even friends like that would take photos of us or like record videos of us. We'd just do it all for free among us, and we'd all help each other out. And it was literally, it was kind of like fucking karma, like, you know, more than anything. It was we didn't I don't think we fucked anyone.
I suppose we don't surround ourselves with people who wouldn't see the
merit in it.
You know, I was on the dole for 10 years, and probably 3 of them years I was still touring around playing music.
That's a good stretch. That's a good stint.
I'm very proud of it. At one time in my life, Andrew was about 7 years on the dole. At one time in my life, I would have been ashamed of that sort of thing, and now I'm very proud of it because it's our money. And as far as I saw it, it was kind of it's an Arts Council grant where you don't have to fill out as many forms, but they do call you every single fucking day, you know. So
that's a job.
Like it was easier. It was easier for us to get in the dole than it was to get Arts Council grants, because we're not like we're not formally educated, or we're not like, you know. Sometimes I feel like it could be a privileged thing to get funding, or you have to either that or you have to really work on it. So like it was easier for us to just be on the dole and be like, oh yeah, I'm trying to find a job now in a factory.
Also, we absolutely had to be on the dole because we had no money. But you know what, even when they'd send me to these courses and stuff, or send me to dole meetings, I'd kind of just as a adult I'd be given out to for not getting a job in Tesco's, because all they want is full-time employment for you. So I can't accept that. And so I talked to them about the government, about politicians, and about like, just, I'd say, I remember saying to one person that had us, her job was to get me a full-time job no matter what it was, because the system they use is one that was set up by Margaret Thatcher in England in the 80s. It's called CTEC now, or Jobs Pat, which is condescending enough already. But I remember telling her, to be honest with you, I'm not getting a full-time job because I want to follow my dreams. Now, are you going to ask me to not follow my dreams? Because I'm going to die at the end of all this. Politicians do what they want. They're the reason I'm in here. You know, I was like, I'm doing what I want to do, and you can either kick me off the dole or you needn't, you know. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, because they're not faced with that sort of honesty.
They're not faced with morality of it.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, so where's the morale now?
Also, a lot of people who are working in jobs in places like that, like the dole office, CTEC, Jobs Bridge, all that, they were on the dole and then they ended up being given a job in there. Mm-hmm. And there's a saying in Ireland, like there's nothing more worse than a reformed hooer, and or not more holy than a reformed hooer. And that's the same as people who are like on the dole and then get a job in Jobs Bridge and like, now what have you done with your CV this month? And it's like, fuck off. Like, you know, it's hilarious to have a job that's based off getting other people jobs. One time I went into a course in Jobs Path that I was forced to go to, that was called the Aspirations course, which is obviously for people who are depressed and can't get jobs. And I was sent in where we had this poor foreign woman who couldn't really speak English properly, having to tell a room full of dole rats like me how to be more positive in our lives, right? And at the top of the sheet we were given, because you're supposed to fill out like your aspirations for next year, they'd be quite personal, which is morally wrong, I think, to get into that sort of stuff. But at the top, it had a quote from Del Boy Trotter on the piece of paper that said, "This time next year, Rodney, we'll be millionaires." And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how is... So anybody that has a complaint about people being on the dole should definitely try and go on the dole for a year. Yeah, that's a funny thing. It's like the absolute attack on your self-esteem when you're on the dole. And also, it's very hard to live on. Like, I was on like €100 a week for the majority of the time I was on the dole because I was under 25 or whatever. But like, it's not easy to live in the dole, and it's even worse in the UK, obviously. But like, people think that the people on the dole have all the money and like, oh, they're getting all this free money and all. But it's like, it's really not easy to live in the dole.
If it's that good, why don't you go on the dole yourself?
Why don't you give it about fucking Richie Sunak instead?
Yeah.
What's your relationship with money in the last few years? Like having a kind of, I guess you got more stability over the last few years as a band, as a unit. everyone knows that even bands who are headlining Roundhouse and Troxy doesn't make you automatically rich, but there is, some kind of. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, we have like in the last 2 years, the difference that it's made is that we actually have money there, like spare money to push the band. So
what's interesting is like if we were around if we were at the level we're at now in like 99 or 2001 or whatever, and we were selling CDs, we'd probably all have houses. But because of Spotify and stuff like that, we actually like we've money to push the band further. So like we can use like the tours in the UK to pay for tours in America and Europe and stuff that don't really make enough money because there's so many people in the band. So it kind of balances out that way. But we feel like we're fucking multi-millionaires because we've been so poor for so long that like even not having to stress about how we're going to get transport to the next gig is like, and last year in fairness, there was a lot of times where during the festival season, especially like where we'd be doing massive stages sometimes and only getting maybe like £700. But then we'd like have to like pay for all the flights and all. So we were still kind of in that.
Still a bit, and there is still an element to that. It's only because it's the start of the year where you're kind of still catching up on yourself a wee bit, but nothing compared to what we used to have to get stolen cars to go to gigs, like for fuck's sake, like literally. So compared to that, this is fucking unbelievable. I remember being told before. Like only a couple of years ago being like complained to that I wasn't good with money, and I used to always tell myself I wasn't good with money because I never had any money.
You can't be good with money when you're fucking poor.
But this is the whole thing. I didn't have spare money. People be going, you should really put some of that away, but like I didn't have money to put away. Mm-hmm. If you don't have spare money, you can't save money.
And what's interesting as well is like it's actually what started the Mary Wallopers, that me and Charles had a hip hop group and we were putting all of our energy. It kind of went a bit viral and we were putting all of our energy into going to do gigs with that. But then we had nothing at all. But when we go back to Dundalk, we'd be like, we need something to like just escape the stress of trying to do this. And then we go into a pub with Sean and play ballads because we knew we'd get free pints. And rather than sitting in our cold, mouldy, damp house, we could just get fucking pissed and play.
The pub had heating. It had electricity.
We had a pay-as-you-go electricity meter, so sometimes we'd have no electricity in the house, and we just go here. Let's go play ballads somewhere.
Because also, if you ran out of electricity with the pay-as-you-go meter, when you run out of electricity, it starts like beeping really loud. It starts screaming at you down the hall, as if it wasn't depressing enough to run out of electricity.
It sounds like a theremin going off.
If it wasn't depressing enough to run out of electricity, you have this fucking machine screaming at you that you don't have enough money to pay your electricity. Like,
so we had pints, lights, and the glory in the pub. Where we could play a little bit of ballads all night. So
it's a lot easier to fall asleep in a mouldy room if you're fucking piss drunk.
And that first time you got paid for a gig, you'd be playing for a few years, playing ballads down the pub, but the first time you got paid was when you played a proper sesh, like how many hours sesh?
It was St. Patrick's Day in 2016.
About 9 hours, probably.
12 hours. We went to the pub at 2:00 in the day, and we didn't leave till like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
but we didn't have any amplification or anything. It was like,
but we did at the start of it. This is how little we knew about playing gigs, is that somebody had brought in a speaker and microphones for us.
I think
we couldn't really get it working, so we were like,
fuck this.
Oh, fuck this. And we just got rid of it and played for
the three of us just played all day, and there was like a rugby match in the middle of it, and we were standing on the chairs in the pub. It was like shouting ballads at people.
Because we didn't know how to play gigs. Like, we were like, just keep playing. We're going to get money for it.
And we were getting €250. And we played for like till closing from 2 in the day on Paddy's Day. And we ended up getting a weekly session out of it though. So we got paid to do that every Sunday for a while, and it was fucking great. But in
McManus's pub,
it was like making the big time, getting a session every week.
I'll never forget that gig as long as I live as well, because our voices were fucked. Like, would you believe we used to be worse than we are now? And we used to just roar, like, I mean, scream the songs, like it'd be no. I remember one pub owner in town, we filled in for one of our friends' sessions. This session would be kind of an Americana, quite a nice folk session. And he got us to fill in one Tuesday, and the pub owner said, "Don't get them lads again. They're like a bunch of drunken louts in the corner."
And then a few months later, we were on the Tommy Tiernan show. And I went into the pub because there was another session on, and she came up to me and she was with her friends, right? She put her arm around me and was like, "Oh, these boys are always playing in my pub," because she's seen us on the telly. But fucking.
Well, it's funny. We kind of are like a bunch of drunken louts in the corner.
Yeah,
but it works.
It's kind of like, I remember watching a documentary before about Mongolian throat singing, and they say that like the young shaman, they get to do it. They get them to live beside a waterfall for like 8 years and sing to the waterfall till their voice becomes louder than the waterfall. But our version of that was going into all the roughest pubs in Dundalk and singing to over all the pissheads, shouting and being like, "Fuck off and shut up" and all. And that was our version of that. It's like trying to silence pubs. And we were adamant about using no amplification for so like till the bitter end. And happy we were.
Excellent. Those are fucking great stories. Thanks for telling me. I love that shit. 101 part-time jobs. What are the most memorable part-time, short-lived, precarious jobs that you have had?
A lot of jobs on building sites. We also worked in a curry factory for a while.
I forgot about that.
And we ended up making a hip-hop song about curry sauce. But it was mostly building sites, and then like dealing with when you sometimes telling strangers that are also working on building sites that you want to be a musician, and then they like assume that you're like gay or something, and they're like kind of, because they like start like coming like, "There's a rock star now," and stuff like that, you know, kind of.
Like, yeah, I worked in many different. My first job was when I was like 13 in a chip van that my sister got for me, and I was always kind of like, why the fuck do I need a job, you know? And like, I worked in this chip van. It was essentially slave labor for children because they'd get them to work in these chip vans. At like, I went to Slane when the Rolling Stones were playing, which sounds, oh wow, but it was shit because I was in a fucking chip van for the whole thing. And I remember getting paid after working so hard for like a week, and I got paid and I was like, right, now I have money, and I could never understand what the fuck I'm supposed to do with this because I was 13, you know. And so I went into like HMV or something at the time, and I bought like a speaker for my computer so I could listen to music off of this speaker. And I remember paying for this thing, putting it beside my computer at home and turning it on and being like, this is not worth it. You know, I was like, this is not worth all the fucking work in the chip van. So I packed it back up and I refunded myself, and I was like, I'm not working again. And I remember the whole family being like, he doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to work. I was like, of course I don't want to fucking work. What the fuck would I want to do that for?
You learn young.
But then, of course, I was like, what the fuck? Why the fuck do I need a job at 30? Our family was definitely a family who were very like, you must work. But like,
we were really instilled so much with the thing of like, you have to work or you're like useless. I suppose a lot of people in Ireland have it, like, but so much so that like I kind of went the other way. When I was like 14, I remember I used to work for this farmer, and like, now granted I was mad into like driving vehicles and all, and he let me drive like the tractors and car and jeeps and all, so I was like kind of doing it, but he literally just like give me like a crumpled up tenner like once a month, and every time I wasn't in school I was like running around after sheep and like working really hard because that's like what you were supposed to do. Yeah, it didn't take long to have an epiphany that like this is a load of shit.
Andrew was always a very hard worker. He was like willing to do a job, but I was like, nah. Like when we worked on the same building site, sometimes I just wouldn't show up for work, and then come in the day after and be like, well, how he's doing? And the abuse that he got was unholy, but at least I was honest about it, you know. I don't know if I build in a house, I wouldn't want me to build my house. You know what I mean?
It's definitely character built as a bit though. Being bullied on building sites for like a few years. It's kind of like,
I think a lot of people have that thing of like, oh, I should be working really hard. I speak about this with my partner and my friends all the time, because if we're on holiday, you know, even if, okay, I've had jobs that I work a few hours a week and I'll get paid more for that than I would do working a full hour week. Yet, at the end of the full hour week, I've still got the fucking, you know, whatever it is, like what I grew up with, or the man, or capitalism, whatever it is that I learned so young, being like, good job, you've done something. I fucking haven't done something. I've made someone else money. I've made someone else money. And that's such a strange kind of like self-prison, if that's not too big to say, to get out of.
Like, so many people spend their whole lives building houses for people that they will never be able to afford themselves.
Yeah, and like,
which is tragic.
It's why I kind of always had a quiet, despite the trouble that I'd get in, I always kind of had a faith in, if I didn't want to go to work, I just wouldn't show up. You know, I wasn't a fucking an efficient worker for people. And people would go like, that's laziness. No, I don't think it is, because when you're getting paid a wage, especially per hour, you're not getting paid for your work. You're getting paid for your time, and furthermore, for it to work for the person that's paying you, you have to be underpaid. You cannot make enough money for yourself, or else the person paying you will lose money. So it's like they have to take advantage of you as a worker, and it's like, I think I was lucky enough to realize that when I was very young, because it's just a scam. You know?
I think one of the biggest realizations of how evil working is I ever had was I worked for about 6 weeks in a tree shop, like, you know, like the phone shops, and
that's worse than a building site.
You realize the evils of it way more because it's a franchise, and like they had this like dress code that you had to wear like Converse and chinos to try and look like casual. And one day this old woman came in and she was like trying to call. She had a son like somewhere far away, like Australia or like Abu Dhabi, or I can't remember where exactly, but she was asking like for a phone plan to call him, and I was like, you'd probably be better off like getting like a Leica mobile or something. And one of the other workers heard me say this and reported me to the manager for saying it, and I got in trouble for like helping this little old woman to not get ripped off by tree. And then like a few weeks later, I didn't go in one day because I was like, fuck that, because like it was really, really depressing, and everyone was kind of competing against each other to sell more phones, and I didn't go in. And then the next day I just went in and pretended not that I just wasn't supposed to be working, and the manager fucking like tore strips out of me for about like an hour, shouted in my face, like, if you ever do that again, you're out of a job here. And I was like, all right, no worries. And the next day I was probably working the following day, and I was walking towards the shop, and then I just turned around and just didn't go in. And everyone was really competitive in the shop, but a few weeks later I was out drinking pints, and I bumped into some of the people from the shop, and they asked me where I had went. But I found out from one of my friends that the manager had been promoted to like a head office, and I told everyone I had been working with that I was promoted to head office. And they were fucking so pissed off. But don't work for tree.
If you let your life be dictated by a job that you have, especially if the job is selling fucking mobile phones or something like that. If the job is a big franchise, you're going to be fucking sad and bitter by the end of your life. Like, fortune favors the bold. Like, if you even get a feeling of pride from fucking quitting your job, then that's automatically you're going to feel a bit better. You just have to trust yourself.
Yeah.
But we're born into a world where all the rich cunts have figured out that it's better to convince all the people who need jobs that we won't be able to do it by ourselves. Also, when in actual fact, they're not able to do it by themselves.
Also, a lot of rich people find it easier to take risks to do new opportunities because they believe in themselves enough because they have everything kind of cushy. But a lot of poorer people don't believe in themselves enough. So I think like the reason a lot of like famous influencers and stuff are all rich anyway, even if they've made the money themselves or made their career themselves, it's because they have the kind of comfort.
It's all nepotism. Like, it's the same with actors and a lot of musicians and all. It's all nepotism, you know.
Yeah, but we can do it as well.
I've got the confidence because of the education I had and because of my brother and sister and my parents. Like, I had that. I was surrounded by people that made me feel like it's normal to go into a room at a party where you don't know anyone and be like, hello, I'm Giles, you know, and you see that around. Yeah, which is awesome. But I'm aware, you're aware of it. Because I know plenty of people that could not do that because of their upbringing.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Like, it's mad. You're kind of made to be subservient or something and feel like you don't deserve even your body space physically in the world.
It's like the scam
tragic.
of money is so much.
It
goes so much further than just the actual money, I think. You know?
And then no wonder people get frustrated and start becoming racist and complaining about immigrants and all, because they're fucking wore out from working, and it's easier to listen to a simple answer that's a lie than just realise the truth that we're just all being fucking duped all the time.
I think the saddest thing that's happening in Ireland at the minute, and obviously it's been happening in the UK for so long, but we're getting that kind of far right thing where like poor people are being manipulated to think that like the reason that they're struggling and there's a housing crisis and everything is because of refugees, rather than because of the like Tory style government that we have.
But the funniest thing is that people that make money off of that ideal, I don't even know if I would respect it enough to call it an ideal, but off of that scam is that they say immigrants don't work, they're coming over here and they're getting everything for free. Then if you go, there's immigrants working over there, they go, immigrants are taking all our jobs. You know, so it's like, it's bollocks, you know.
People are so easy to jump on scapegoats, whether it's like immigrants or like people of different sexualities or trans people or anything like that. And they'll go like, oh, it's just so annoying that this is happening. But like the reality of it is like, the rich people are the ones that are making your life frustrating.
Yeah. It's
not any other people who are minding their own business or just trying to get by in the world.
If you're working in these shit jobs and then all you get to look forward to in the evenings and at night is Netflix, you know, like that is fucking incredibly depressing.
The other thing is like working in jobs,
because you're so tired you can't do anything else.
The jobs are so tiring, and like we were trying to like push the band while also like doing like jobs and like factories and like building sites and all that sort of like manual labor. By the time you get home, it takes so much energy to bring yourself like I remember, like I only can remember this now, but like all day in work I'd just be daydreaming about like, you know, I'll go home and I'll try and write some songs, I'll learn some ballads or whatever, and then you get home and you're like, it's so hard to lift yourself up to do anything. So like people are so worn out, and then
let's say you have kids then on top of that, and then you're kind of stuck then
because you have
to mind the kids, so you have to keep doing the work. All this shit, and it's just it's the way you're trapped. And then you can start believing that you're doing something for yourself, because the reality is so tragic to accept that actually what you're doing is you're making money for other people.
Yeah.
Like I would struggle to see jobs where where most people are in jobs where you're not making profits for someone else, because that's what jobs are, you know, unless you're in charge of it, you know. And it's not to say that we have solutions for that, because we don't really, you know. It's
like killing politicians, probably
kill politicians.
Well, I think it's pretty radical to talk about it, because I feel like this kind of conversation is often buffered by some kind of shame. You know, it's almost like, oh, we shouldn't talk about it. So talking about
people are so ashamed of you know, people are so ashamed about unemployment, and I was. You know, it'd make you fucking suicidal being unemployed, because you feel like you have no worth to give the world. But you do. Just being alive is actually enough. You know, the chances of us even being alive in the first place as individuals is so slim that that's already a fucking achievement. Do you know what I mean? So like to poison life with something like, well, you need to get a job. Why? Because then if you don't have a job, you won't have money, you know. I remember seeing a skit by some comedian, or a bit by some comedian that was saying like, if God came back to Earth, God would be like, what the fuck are you after doing? You know, and people would be like, well, we had to build all this for the money. And he's like, what the fuck is money? You know, like, and that's a very simplified attitude of it, but it's just so funny because we just believe it, and you can spend years getting rid of the fucking brainwashing of like, oh, I didn't do work enough.
From when you're a tiny child, you're being programmed to think in this way of thinking, and like I think we're still trying to deprogram ourselves out of that way of thinking, because it's everyone needs to, if we're going to change things.
Hey, thanks so much for the time. This is Ace. You know, cheers for the morning. It's pretty early morning, so thank you for the, you know, more or less an hour. Nice to meet you, and you know, cracking chat.
Lovely.
Thanks.
So that was Henry and Charles here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Their new record, Irish Rock and Roll, is out now, and it came out at the end of last year. What a great record. Go and see this band live when you get the chance. That is the one thing you need to do. go see the Mary Wallopers live. It's a real experience. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this, on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else. We put out a few episodes at least every week, so come join us and hear from these interesting, exciting bands. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok. I know I hate saying that, but that's where we're putting out a lot of video stuff. You can see clips from this episode and other episodes that we're doing on our Instagram and TikTok at 101 Part-Time Jobs Pod. And if you play in a band, if you're an artist and you want to release your own record, you can do that through DistroKid. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod and you can get 30% off your first year, making all your own royalties, putting out your records and getting them on Spotify, Apple, TikTok, YouTube, all of that. Get 30% off your first year there. It's like a yearly fee thing and you get 30% off your first year. It's totally affordable by heading to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. And if you've got a friend or a family member or someone you work with who's in a band and they're an artist and they're struggling to put out their records, let them know about this. Let them know about DistroKid and how you can get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/101pod.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.